Hey Scrapbookers, it's Katie Scott, and I have something a little different for you. I've been trying to screencast. So this is a screencast, and I'm here at the Get It Scrapped site, and today we're going to go to Story Swoop, and this is a free tool for swooping in to tell your stories. Um, to tell the stories of your life now. And so the memory that I have is of my grandmother, my Nana. Her name was Ruby, and I was driving the kids to school this morning, and she said, well, I kind of drove over the bushes in our yard. And so I was reminded of this time when my Nana drove over my dad's mailbox. And I don't have a picture of that, obviously. Well, not obviously, but I don't have any pictures of it. But I did want to tell the story, and so I'm going to be using Debbie Hodges' Story Swoop, and you can find that at either getitscrap.com or masterfulscrapbookdesign.com to tell that story. So let's start. So here we are at Story Swoop, and I think I already am, so I just need to log in. Okay, log in. Let's see if that gets me there. Waiting. Let's see. Oh, it says Howdy Katie Scott right up here in the upper right hand corner. So let's go back to Story Swoop. So it looks like my login was successful. Okay, so I did just released a new class every month. Okay, that's something different. But I want to go to Story Swoop. Huh. Get It Scrapped. Free membership at Get It Scrapped. Okay. We would still want to go to Story Swoop. Here we are. Okay, that's just the icon. Why can't I find it? I'm not really sure. So let's go back to the home page. And now let's go to this is great, right? Well, home membership. I don't really know why I can't get back there. I've used it before, and I'm not like the techiest person out there, as you may know about me. If you've listened to any of the other of my, where is it? So that's Podcast Shop Classes. Let's see if it's under Classes more. Because it's a free product from Get It Scrapped. So these are the classes that you can pay for. And then so I'm clicking on the icon Story Swoop. I didn't mean for this to go so. I don't really know what's going on. So I'm just going to open a new window. And yeah, let's go to Stories. Here we are. Go back to Get It Scrapped, and so there's 5 different areas. Okay, so it says, Katie, you are registered for Story Swoop. Click here to start swooping. Okay, so I'm not sure why I got so lost, but here I am. Okay, so your personal Story Swoop library, use it now. So I want to click here to start a new story. Yes, and I've done a couple of stories already. Enter the story photo or enter the story or the name, the story name. So I'm going to enter Nana Ruby hits the mailbox. Hits the mailbox. And then the date of the story isn't, well, I'll just put in today's date, but the date of the story was probably circa, I don't know, 1998, I'll just say. I actually wanted to see if I had a photo of my Nana. Let me just look in my photo library here. Um, so her name was Ruby. Yeah, this is her, but it's not how she looked when this story would have happened. Let me try another one. Nana. Nope, I don't have her in there as Nana. Let me write Fenderson. That's my maiden name. I don't see her. I see lots of Fendersons. That's her when she was much younger. Let me type in her maiden name. Her maiden name was Grave, and I'm getting way older photos. So let's go with that first one. What was it, Nana? Nope. Ruby? Yeah, here it is. Okay, so let's see if I can actually pull in her photo. So if you want to include a photo with your notes, so I'm going to browse, and I had located the photo in my Picasa program. Let's see if I can find it. So if I type in Ruby, yep, there she is. Okay, so I'll just put her in there. And then if your image is already online, save now if your photo size is big. Okay? It says your image will be compressed, so this isn't the place to store photos for safekeeping. Rather, it's a way, I think, just to be a reference is what she's trying to say. Okay, select photo then. Huh. Okay, so let's go back to Nana Ruby hits the mailbox. Okay, so there she is. How do you feel when you look at this photo? Okay, so I'm actually not using Story Swoop for the intended purpose. So when the story is my dad had my Nana, his mother, over for dinner at his new wife's house, and afterwards Nana asked him to drive her home to her, and she was living in an assisted living facility across to her tiny home. And she didn't live in a tiny home her whole life. She lived in a big fancy place. But this is at the end of her life. Across town in Bangor, Maine. My dad told her to drive herself, and she said, okay, and went out to the driveway, got in her car, and drove right over his mailbox. He then drove her home. So that's the story. How do I feel? I feel admiration for my grandmother, who got her way one way or another, especially since during her life I don't think she got her way most of the time, as my grandfather was the boss in their marriage. This was after he died and before my father and she died. My dad actually ended up dying. How do you spell dying? Dying before predicted that they couldn't have predicted that at the time. I remember my father calling me to tell me about this experience, and he sounded like a mixture of annoyance, duty, and admiration, and we both had a chuckle at my Nana's ability to get her way. Okay, so list at least 3 specific concrete details from the photo or situation. Describe an item or the feel of the wind or sun, or the texture of the item, or a smell or a color. Okay, so this story was relayed to me over the phone, long distance, so I was talking to my dad on the phone, and I honestly don't remember what phone I was talking to him on. Long distance, Florida to Maine. I can remember from when I lived with my dad that whenever he talked to anyone on the phone, he would have a, handwritten, or sometimes even a typewritten list of topics he planned to address during the phone conversation. Pardon me. Even for personal calls. So no doubt this story was on his list of things to tell me about. So there's one detail. Another detail is, let's see, my Nana didn't usually drive during, well, I don't know if she did or not, but I have a different story about my Nana driving, but I'm not going to tell that when I was real little. I jumped out of her car because I thought she was driving too slow. So I guess I'll tell that, because then I kind of got my way as well. And I think that in our family, we do kind of admire a little bit of rule breaking in order to get one's way. Yeah. I don't know what to say about that. When I was about 4, my Nana was driving me out to her camp, which was a 600-acre piece of land on the St. Croix River in Calais, Maine, and it looked over across the river to Canada. The land was partly a forest, partly blueberry fields, and a small pond which my grandfather put in so he could fish freshwater, and their camp, and later their big house. Anyways, my Nana. I felt like my Nana was driving too slowly, so I jumped out of the car. I guess getting our way runs in the blood. Okay, so, these really aren't what number 2 is asking for because I'm telling little stories. Specific concrete details, I'm not really accomplishing that, am I? And then let me just say I remember admiring my Nana for her ability to manipulate my dad. And I was reminded of this story this morning when, oops, sorry if you're getting any noise there, I was driving the kids to school and Mac was late as always and he got in the car and didn't immediately put his seat belt on like I tell him to every time, and as I was backing out of the driveway, I ran. Okay, so my husband has planted these like giant hedges in front of our house, and I think they obstruct vision, and so I'm not very excited about them. But I didn't intentionally drive over them, but I did drive over them. Okay, and I was backing out of the driveway. I drove right over those two tall hedges that Daddy Charlie planted, which I think obstruct my view, and he thinks are good for privacy. I wonder if he'll notice the damaged hedge. I really wasn't trying to get my way on the hedge situation, but I guess driving over them makes my point. I really didn't intentionally drive over his hedges, but I did. What does it mean to be feeling this way? Is it good, bad, or neutral? It makes me happy and gives me a little chuckle. While I don't think that doing things just to get one's own way is a good way to get through life or conflicts, I do find it amusing to resort to this type of small rebellion once in a while to make a point. Mailboxes and hedges be damned. Micro world is how did this photo come to be taken? There is no photo. So is there a particular story to tell? If so, what is it? So there was no photo taken, and I guess the story of my Nana is Nana grew up with her family of 4 girls in Canada, and she met my grandfather right before World War II when she was a math teacher. I'm not really sure how they met. Maybe they met while ice skating in New Brunswick. I'm not sure how that story goes, but something like that. They always lived in Calais, where my grandfather grew up, and their houses always felt very fancy, and to me, at the time of this story, of the mailbox, at the time of the mailbox incident, she was living, my grandfather had died, and she was living in an assisted living, kind of like a college apartment for old ladies type of place on Stillwater Avenue in Bangor, Maine. So she would be living in the same town as my dad and uncle, so they could help her out. I think my dad at the time felt like he wanted to help her, but that she would sometimes take more than he was willing to give in terms of his time. And then, how did this photo come to be taken? Is there a particular story to tell? If so, what is it? And then the other story is, I wonder if my dad was also having problems driving at that time because he was in the early stages. He was already, well, because at that time he would have had the disease Shy-Drager syndrome that would kill him, although he didn't know it at the time. I wonder if he was already having motor skill issues and difficulty driving, but didn't want to say anything about it. Okay, and then the macro world. What is happening about your life right now that gives this macro moment context? Do you have a new job or the holiday season, or is it rare for you to have time for breakfast? Okay, so right now we are a family who has trouble getting to school on time, especially because it is difficult for Mac to wake up and get going in the morning. Charlie and I alternate driving the kids to school and this was my week. I really wasn't trying to prove any points with driving over the hedge, but I do think those hedges are a little too tall in case you are reading. Really? What is happening in your life right now? What else? So I told the kids about this old story because it came to mind, and since they never got to meet my dad or my Nana, I try to tell them as many stories as I can about them so that they will know them. And since I had the story on my mind, I wanted to write it down since my sister keeps telling me that, well, the scrapbooks are nice. She'd rather have a photo and a typed out story. So here you go, Jenny. Okay, so I'm going to update that, and I'm not sure how long I've been talking. Okay, so I updated that, and I don't know what the next step. Okay, I guess that was step 1. So there's step 1, all typed up, update. Okay. Da-da-da. Okay, now step 2. As you enter story notes, they will be listed below. Click on each to get the customized writing guides. You can print or output your story notes and writing guides to a PDF file on the next page. Okay, so we're going to go to step 2, and then I clicked on Nana Ruby Hits the Mailbox. Okay. Okay, so now we're at Story Swoop Guide for Writing from Your Notes. Write this. You know what I think I did before? Is I did print it out and then I just wrote it at a different time. So let's just read what Debbie has to write here. So it says, the first one is, consider how the photo makes you feel. Consider the specific details you recorded. Pick out a detail that you can present in a way that's congruent with this feeling, in a way that evokes a mood or sets the tone, and do it in sentence 1. You know what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go print this out, and so, I don't know what I'm going to do. I wish there was a way to kind of write it right here, but I don't think there is. Let's just click on, okay, so the instructions for this are, below are 4 steps for writing a story for your photo. In column 1, see a short writing lesson. In column 2, see your prompted notes. In column 3, see an example. Okay, print or PDF. I think I'm not going to have a problem printing that. I just don't have a printer right here. And then if you included images. So I think I'm going to go print this out, and then I must just want to like put all that stuff down and not manipulate it. Let me just see if I have a word processing program on this computer. I don't see one. That's not good. I have two on my other computer. Okay. So I'm kind of at a I need to print stage on this. But what the steps are going to be are pick out a detail and present it in a way that's congruent with this feeling. And so we're going to start the story with a detail and then introduce the micro story within the macro context of your life right now. Make it clear the who, what, where, when, or how of the situation. Try to convey not only the immediate moment, but the larger context. Okay. I think I kind of need to like have a word processor handy. So I think I'm going to move to my other computer. So I will be back. Okay, thanks for watching. Hey Scrapbookers, it's Katie Scott and I'm back, and this is my YouTube channel, and here's the first part of Story Swoop. It's called Nana Hits the Mailbox, and let me just see if I have a playlist to put that in. Oops, that's how it starts. Just gonna see if I can add this to. Well, I'll put it under Get It Scrapped because that's so that's where you can find it. I have a playlist called Get It Scrapped / Masterful Scrapbook Design, and that's where that will be. But now we're going to do part 2 of the Story Swoop. So I've entered all of my notes, and what I did was I copied, so I just did copy, and then I went into my word processing system and pasted it. So all of my notes, and I messed with the margins a little just so I could print all of the notes on one page, and then the second page is going to be my my finished story. So, and I should probably make the margins like not so crazy down here. Okay, so there we go. It's just, and so let's go back to Story Swoop. Let's see, it's this one here. And the part that I'm going to go to is to that step 2. So we've done the step 1, select a photo and enter in all your notes. Now we're going to do step 2, write the story with a customized writing guide. As you enter story notes, they will be listed below. Click on each to get customized writing guides. You can print or output your story notes, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I've clicked on Nana Hits the Mailbox, that story, and okay, so it says write this. Consider how the photo makes you feel. Consider the specific details. Pick out the detail that you can present in a way that's congruent with this feeling. Sets a tone. For example, if you're worried, is there something in the environment that's particularly worrisome? Okay, so how does the story make you feel? Those are my notes. And then those are some concrete details. And I didn't really follow the directions. But here's the example by Emily Sagnella. My baby blue mittens are dirtied at the fingertips. They almost... Okay, so let's start. Okay, so let's go to my word processing system and out in the driveway at about 10 a.m. Dog, our new dog, Jessie, is pulling at her leash. Excited that I am going to take her for a walk. Charlie has all of the front yard sprinklers on, and he is checking them to make sure they are all working. And I say, did you notice the hedges? Ugh. He has a gruff look on his face and sees that one of the front hedges is noticeably, it's not quite noticeably, but to the keen eye, a little bit off kilter. Over to inspect it, and I have a little giggle and admit that I ran over it this morning while trying to get the kids off to school. I explained that Mac was late and I was focused on him getting his seat belt on while I slowly backed out of the driveway and ran over the hedge. Okay, let's go back to I don't know if that really, hi, somewhere I paused along the way and I didn't mean to, but I've done a little bit of writing here, but I'm going back to the story, Swoop. I don't know where I left off, but what I didn't really do was okay, so step one, introduce the story with detail presented in a way that reflects your mood. Okay, so I think the way I'm going to start the story is I heard a crunch in the back of my car over the chaos of noise from the radio and me trying to get Mac to put on his seatbelt. And him protesting that he already knows that. And I am instantly chuckling and then relaying the story of my Nana from the mailbox to the kids. Okay, so I'm not really following all of the directions, but then the story is, and I'm just going to copy that. So today is Tuesday, February 25th, 2014, and I'll say it's 8:03 a.m. I'm gonna do some little titles here. She doesn't say to do that, but I'm gonna do it anyways. So, and then I'll go back to Tuesday, February 25th, 2014 at like 10:04 a.m. Okay. Remind each other that we need to stop today to pick up the rear view camera for the U-Pan. Okay, so I've got sort of a not exactly following the rules here. Surprise, surprise. Gonna take these two. Let's see what the story Swoop said. So the first step was introduce the story with a detail presented in a way that reflects your mood. Okay, so the detail would be, oops, those are my notes. The detail is the front hedge is just slightly on a tilt, only to a trained eye. Okay, I'm back. And I don't know how interesting this writing process is to anyone, but if you like it, maybe I'll do it again. If you don't like it, I won't do it anymore. So the front hedge is just slightly knocked over. A slight tilt that only someone who was looking would notice. That's my front. That's my first sentence. So there's my little detail. A slight tilt that only someone would notice, and it would only take a few minutes of straightening out to fix. Okay. And then I heard the crunch in my back part, the story of my dad, and I'm instantly telling the story to my of Nana and my mailbox to the kids. The story. Here's the story. My dad had my Nana, his mother, over for dinner. My kids are asking whether my dad was dating my Nana, and no, I had to explain I am talking about my grandmother and my dad, so it was her son and she was his mother. I think I'll just cut this here. No, I won't. Never mind. Okay. I'm not sure if I'm doing this correctly or not, but let's keep going. So the second part was introduce the story. No, that was the first part. The second part is set the context. Okay. Cleaning up after horses isn't an ideal for... Okay. Oh, she does it in one sentence. Look at how long I do it. Introduce the micro story within the macro context. Make it clear who, what, where, and or when of the situation. Okay, so let's go back. And then this part, maybe I'll leave this part till the end. So here's the story. Let's go back up. These ones are my notes. So I was talking to my dad on the phone, blah de blah. Copy. I'm just gonna do some copying and pasting. I remember it must have been about 1998, after my grandfather died, but before my dad was diagnosed with his illness. I remember, and then I go into a story about when I was 4. I don't really know if I need to. So here's about my Nana. Let's take that one, about how she grew up. So I'll copy that, and maybe put that right here. I remember hearing the Mailbox story for the first time, because it was a story that got told over and over again in my family, and still does. Okay, and then let's go back to Story Swoop. I'm not really sure if I have... I don't know. Okay, the next is tell the rest of the story details, and then the final is finish with the connection to how this photo makes you feel. And again, I'm talking about a story, not really a photo. So I'm just going to try to fill in all my details and go off the rail with the... I think I'll take these two, how I feel, and put those at the end. Okay. And I'm totally not following the rules now. So I've done that one, I've done that one, I've done that one, I've done that one. I didn't do this one about when I was 4. Copy. I'm thinking it might have been helpful to I'm thinking it might have been helpful to number those paragraphs up at the top, because now I don't know. I think I'll end with these 2 paragraphs, and then this one I think I'll go here. Okay, and then I'll read it to you and we'll see how it... I didn't really do what the Story Swoop told me to do, but I still think that all of those prompts will get me to a good place. So let's just see. Okay, so the top part is my notes, and so this is where the story starts here. So let's just move this margin down just a little, give it some more normal margins. Okay, the front hedge is just slightly knocked over. The front hedge of, I think it's called Indian hawthorn. So there's a detail. Good to be specific. It's just slightly knocked over. A slight tilt that only someone who was looking would notice, and it would take a few minutes of straightening out. It would only take a few minutes of straightening out to fix. Right now, we are a family of 4 with a 4th and 6th grader who has trouble getting to school on time, especially because it is difficult for Mac to wake up and get going in the morning. Charlie and I alternate driving the kids to school, and this was my week. Hold on just a second. I've got a glare on my computer, and I'm just going to fix that. Okay, I'm back. So let me just start over again. The front hedge of Indian hawthorn is just slightly knocked over. A slight tilt that only someone who was looking would notice, and it would only take a few minutes of straightening out to fix. Right now, we are a family of 4 with a 4th and 6th grader who has trouble getting to school on time, especially because it is difficult for Mac to wake up and get going in the morning. Charlie and I alternate driving the kids to school, and this was my week. I really wasn't trying to prove any points with driving over the hedge, but I do think those hedges are a little too tall, in case you're reading, Charlie. So I told the kids about this old story because it came to mind, and since they never got to meet my dad or Nana, I try to tell them as many stories as I can about them so that they will know them. And since I had the story on my mind, I wanted to write it down since my sister keeps telling me that while scrapbooks are nice, she'd rather have a photo and a typed out story. So here you go, Jenny. Tuesday, February 25th, 2014, 8:03 a.m. I heard a crunch in the back of my car over the chaos of the noise from the radio and me trying to get Mac to put on his seatbelt and him protesting that he already knows that. And I am instantly chuckling and then relaying the story of my Nana and the mailbox to the kids. And I'll say, and despite just running right over the bushes, and despite just accidentally running right over the bushes, I am instantly chuckling and then relaying the story of my Nana, put Ruby, and the mailbox to the kids. And I'm going to capitalize story because, I don't know, I don't think it's proper, but it is like the story of my Nana and the mailbox. I'll just put this. Of my Nana Ruby. I'll put that kind of in quotes. Sorry, I'm going to cough. Pardon me. Still have like a little cough. It's very annoying. Okay, here's the story. My dad had my Nana, his mother, over for dinner at his new wife's house, and afterwards Nana asked him to drive her home to her tiny home, an assisted living facility across town in Bangor, Maine. Did I write Stillwater Avenue? I thought I did. Assisted living facility on Stillwater Avenue, across town in Bangor, Maine. Okay. My dad told her to drive herself and she said, okay, and then went out to the driveway, got in her car and drove right over his mailbox. He then drove her home. My kids are asking whether my dad was dating my Nana, and was that why he had her over for dinner. And no, I had to explain, I'm talking about my grandmother and my dad, so it was her son and she was his mother. Nana Ruby, put her name in there, Ruby Grieve Henderson, grew up with her family of 4 girls in Canada, and she met I can't remember if there was 4, there was Olive, Doris, Mabel, and my Nana, and there might have been one more. I can't remember. I'd have to look at a picture. With her family of 4 girls in Canada. She met my grandfather right before World War II when she was a math teacher. Maybe they met while they were ice skating in New Brunswick. I'm not sure how that story goes, but something like that. They always lived in Calais, Maine, where my grandfather grew up, and their houses always felt very fancy to me. At the time of the mailbox incident, my grandfather had already died. Had already died. I'm gonna write already died, and she was living. And all right, Nana Ruby was, or Nanny. We used to call her Nanny. Actually, we didn't spell it like that. We spelled it like Nanny. I think we spelled it. Maybe we spelled it like Nanny. Called her Nana or Nanny. Anyways, she was living in an assisted living facility. Okay, so did I write that? I did. So I can take this out. I wanted to include that detail of Stillwater Avenue, but I didn't want to include it twice. Where was I? I'm sorry. This is wrecking the flow, isn't it? Always felt very fancy to me. At the time of the mailbox incident, my grandfather had already died, and Nana Ruby, or Nanny, as we called her, was living in an assisted living facility, kind of like a college apartment with a cafeteria, so she didn't have to cook, for old ladies type of place, on Stillwater Avenue in Bangor, Maine. So she would be living in the same town and my dad and uncle, as my dad and uncle, so they could help her out in her old age. I think my dad at the time felt like he wanted to help her, but she would sometimes take more than he was willing to give in terms of his time. I wonder if my dad was also, and I'll just write, for example, she wanted him to take her to the shop and save grocery store a few times a week, and he'd only go once. I wonder if my dad was also having problems driving at the time, because at that time he would have had the disease, Shy-Drager syndrome, that would kill him, although he didn't know it at the time. I wonder if he was already having motor skill issues and difficulty driving, but didn't want to say anything about it. And now I have this super big transition, which this doesn't fit. So I'm gonna cut that, and I'm just gonna stick it down at the bottom because I don't know where else to put it right now. But I don't think it's gonna stay there. I remember hearing the mailbox story for the first time. I was talking to my dad on the phone, the long distance Florida to Maine. It must have been about 1998. So I don't think I put that 1998 detail in there yet. So that's fine. After my grandfather had died, but before my dad was diagnosed with this illness, I can remember from when I lived with my dad that whenever he talked to anyone on the phone, he would have a handwritten or sometimes even a typewritten list of topics he planned to address during his phone conversation, even for personal calls. So no doubt this story was on his list of things to tell me. And this is, I think, where I'm going to add that story. My dad was always so detail-oriented, but I was always rather impulsive and less worried about the details. And that's where that 4-year-old story, so, okay, that's when this will go. Cut. So I'm just going to add it in here. When I was about 4, my Nana, and I'll just add Ruby. Ruby was driving. We didn't call her Nana Ruby, but I call her that to my kids now. When I was about 4, 8 years old, my Nana Ruby was driving me out to her camp, which was a 600-acre piece of land on the St. Croix River in Calais, Maine, and it looked over across the river to Canada. The land was partly forest, partly blueberry fields, and had a small man-made pond which my grandfather put in so he could freshwater fish, and their camp, and later the big house. That's right. It was an impressive camp, as they called it. Anyway, I felt like my Nana was driving too slowly, so I jumped out of her car. I guess getting our way runs in the blood. She loved to tell that story over and over, just like I love now to tell the story of her and that mail in that pesky mailbox. Okay, so now we're back to reality. Okay, so Tuesday, February 25th, 2014, 10:04 a.m. So this is after I've dropped off the kids at school. I should probably write that. With kids now at school, Charlie and I are out in the driveway. Our new dog Jessie is pulling at her leash, excited that I'm going to take her for a walk. Charlie has all of the front yard sprinklers on, and he is checking them to make sure they are all working. And I say, "Did you notice the hedges?" He has a gruff look on his face. I'll say he immediately makes a gruff look. He immediately gives me a gruff look and sees that one of the front hedges is not quite noticeably, but to the keen eye, a little bit off kilter. He goes over to inspect it, and I have a little giggle and admit that I ran over it this morning while trying to get the kids off to school. I explain that Mac was late and I was focused on him getting his seatbelt on while I slowly backed out of the driveway and ran right over the hedge. Let's see, ran right. We remind each other that we need to stop at Best Buy today to pick up the rear view camera for the minivan. Okay, so then now I'm kind of, I guess we all have our ways. And then I'm just going to make a little kind of a because I want to go back to that story. I'm going to cut this one and put it up here. I say, and then my mind wanders back to the then while walking the dog. My mind wanders back to that phone call with my dad. To that phone call with my dad. My father calling me to tell me about his experience and with Nana and the mailbox. And he sounded like, and I remember he sounded like a mixture of annoyance, duty, and admiration, and we both had a chuckle at my Nana's ability to get her way. I feel admiration for my grandmother, who got her way one way or another, especially since during her life I don't think she got her way most of the time, as my grandfather was the boss in their marriage. This was after he died and before my... Okay, so I kind of already said that. I'm going to omit that part. But she was on her own at the time of the mailbox incident, and they didn't know it then, but my dad would actually end up dying before she did, but they couldn't have predicted that at the time. I remember admiring my Nana for her ability to manipulate my dad. Okay, and then I go back into kind of what I've already said. And I was reminded of this story this morning when I was driving the kids to school. I think I already had that. Uh, this seems redundant, so I was reminded. I wonder if he'll notice the damaged hedge. So I think I'm going to omit most of this, and then. Okay, so I remember admiring my Nana for her ability to manipulate my dad and giving her the benefit of the doubt because of her age. I don't know. And admiring that she still had some spunkiness. Okay. And then I'll write, this morning, I really wasn't trying to get my way on the hedge situation, but I guess driving over them makes my point. The minivan is hard to back up, and the kids are, and the kids' morning routine is a bit overwhelming. It makes me happy. I'll just say being able to recall my Nana this morning amidst okay, no, amidst our morning chaos. Being able to recall my Nana this morning amidst our weekday fray makes me happy and gives me a little chuckle again. Well, I don't think that doing things just to get one's way is a good way to get through life or conflicts. I do find it amusing to resort to this type of small rebellion once in a while to make a point. Mailboxes and hedges be damned. Okay, so I'm going to print out these two sheets. Let's give myself some more margins here. And then I'm going to make a scrapbook page, because that's the point of this, right? Let's just see. And so I'm just going to print it out on regular paper. And then I will be back to show you the finished page, or to finish the page. So this is kind of a longer page to make. Okay, I'll be back. Hi Scrapbookers, so this is like part 3 of that story Swoop about, it's called Nana and the Mailbox. And so I printed out these are my notes and I kept them anyways. And then this is the actual story. And then I didn't have photos, so I found some photos of my son washing my minivan. So those are a potential. I found some pictures of me and my dad, but I actually think I'd rather use these for a different story, so I'm not going to use those. And then I also found some photos from last year, which I think I took during like when Ali Edwards does that like week in the life. So these are just some morning photos, and I think these are the ones that I want to use. And so I think I want to use them like kind of going down the page. So if I do a 2-page spread, then the photo, like the story will be in the middle, and then the it'll kind of go like this. And so I want to crop this photo and this photo. Hold on just a second.